Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group called Navigate to Your Niche.
Greetings from Chicagoland. This is Munira, the Niche Navigator, with another guest on Munira's Musings. Welcome, Marc. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Marc is the CEO of Natural Born Coaches. I don't know what that means, but I want to know what that is really. So we are looking forward to your interview. And so thank you again. And let's just dive into this. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Marc.
Yeah, so natural born coach is not to be confused with natural born killers. Two different things. A lot of people know the movie. I mean, in a nutshell, what I do is help coaches get more clients without paid ads. So I've been doing it since early 2014 and so approaching 6 years and having a lot of fun with it. But those are my people, coaches. And I think you have people who watch us who are not coaches, maybe online entrepreneurs, but I think there's a lot of crossover between the two as well. So I'm sure we'll have a good chat today.
Yes, thank you so much. So 2014, when you started your business, what did you do before that?
Before that, I was in real estate for about a decade through my 20s. And I started that when I was 21 years old. And to make a really long story short, I went through a bad business closure. Not that there's ever any good business closures, but it was a messy business closure. And that's what got me eventually into coaching. Was I didn't know anything about coaches before that. When I was in real estate, when I needed to get help back on my feet, I employed a couple different coaches or hired coaches to help me with it. And that's how I found out about what coaching can do. And when I was ready to start a new business in 2014, I thought, wow, I'll go into coaching myself because I've seen what it can do. So that's like I said, a really long story made short.
So that's wonderful, right? I mean, you thought of this as a good business. Now everybody these days want to become a coach and they're teaching this, that, and the other. Why is this industry so robust and why is it growing so fast?
Why is it growing so fast? I mean, there's a number of reasons. I think first off, talking about business closures, you have a lot of people who were affected by the Great Recession, 2007, 2008 and stuff, or were downsized. Maybe they're burnout with corporate America. Well, coaching is a perfect business because there's no very little overhead and not much to get into it. So the barrier to entry is very low for the most part. I also think that people are attracted to being able to build a business online. If you want to wear your pajamas and slippers and work from home, you can do that as well. And it's a lot of fun. And we'll keep it real that there are a lot of people getting into coaching are get rich quick types, which think you're going to make $1 million in a week. And that's why they're jumping in. So you have a number of reasons for it, but I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. I think it's actually going to be a lot more coaches in 5 years down the road.
Okay. So you were in real estate and then what were you teaching? What were you coaching on when you decided that you were going to take this route?
Well, when I started coaching, it's funny that you do things with niching because when I started coaching, I had a very broad focus. I said, I'm going to help any entrepreneur that's out there because I like entrepreneurs. I don't think entrepreneurs get the kind of credit that they deserve. So I said, I want to help every entrepreneur that's out there. And I realized in that first year that was too broad, that I need to narrow that down. And where I ended up working solely with coaches and helping them with their businesses, I had a couple of my clients who were coaches, and I enjoyed those sessions. I loved everything about it, and it just really clicked with me. And I said, you know what, this is silly for me to be targeting bricks and mortar business owners and everything else. I'm going to focus on just coaches. So even to this day, if anyone comes to me that wants to work with me, if they're not a coach, I refer them off to someone who can help them.
That's awesome. So you're helping business owners becoming coaches, and then you're also helping other coaches who can help them. So it's two-way street, right?
Yeah, I mean, any of the coach I work with, they're across the board, any niche. I've worked with life coaches, health coaches, relationship coaches, business coaches, sales coaches, and so on. So it's been a pretty broad range. I don't deal with just one type of coach, but it's interesting because no 2 days are the same, as from doing 200 or 300 of these shows. There's always interesting things happening every day.
Yes, that's true. So let me ask you something else. So when you first started coaching, what was the I know you've evolved, but what was the core, what were you teaching then? What were you teaching then?
When I first started coaching, it wasn't focused. I had a love of entrepreneurship and wanting to help entrepreneurs, but it was very fuzzy. And that's why I tell coaches not to put too much pressure on themselves, because when you're starting out right out of the gate, you're probably not going to have it figured out perfectly. It takes a little bit of time of stumbling through the wilderness to get that clarity. So yeah, it was extremely broad. If I was coaching myself back then, I would say, hey, Mark, you have to get more clear on this. You can't just say, hey, I'm working with every Tom, Dick, or Harry, any entrepreneur that's out there, because that's just way too broad.
So niching down, right?
Yeah.
Niching
Yeah.
down on the people that you want to coach and what you're going to coach.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, especially nowadays, not to knock life coaches, but if you go out there and you say, hey, I'm a life coach, it's not saying that there aren't successful ones, obviously, but you're making it more difficult because it is so broad. I see a lot of coaches say, hey, I'll help you lose weight, have better relationships, be more spiritual, make more money, and blah, 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 and try to do everything for people, and their message is getting lost. So for me, for example, I'm focusing solely on the business side of it, helping coaches get more clients. Now that'll help other parts of their lives because they should have better relationships with their partners if they don't have money worries, and they're hopefully have more energy. They can do different things. They can travel because they have money, but I don't try to say that I do all those things. It's just too broad. My whole thing is just helping coaches get more clients without paid ads.
Great. What do you tell people who are thinking of jumping into this sea, into this ocean?
Buckle up. Well, not to be a pessimist, I like to think I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I'm a realist, and I always tell people that it's going to take some time. You're going to have to plant some seeds and water them, and it's going to take time for those seeds to sprout. I find too many coaches are getting seduced by the get-rich-quick gurus that are out there, that are promising these magic funnels, again, where you can make $1 million in a week, work 5 minutes a day with it. So I try to lower expectations. Now, don't get me wrong, you can do very well. It's not going to take 10 years to get rolling, but it's going to take more than 10 days to be doing it as well. And I'm hoping, I think with the industry as it grows and matures, that those get rich quick gurus I mentioned will get weeded out and people can see through it. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are falling for it now here in 2019.
Okay. Because there's a lot of technology out there, right? And everybody wants to have a piece of it.
Yeah, you see the pictures with the rented Lamborghinis and castles and boats and supermodels and all that. So that's going to attract the get rich quick types. I'm in it for the long game. I don't want to work with get rich quick people, because they're going to be disappointed when they don't make $1 million in a week, and that's not going to help me. So I set up certain hurdles to push away the certain types of client, including get rich quick types.
So what is it that you do now? You said you help people with get clients without doing ads or stuff. How is that even possible in this world? Because every time you turn around, there's an ad somewhere.
Well, I mean, that's a good example right here. You're not paying for your show, yet you've been out there a couple hundred episodes and you've had thousands and thousands of views. So there's a good example. Not saying people have to do video or have to do podcasts or whatever. My suggestion to people, there's tons of things you can choose that are organic, that don't cost money, like ads. What I always suggest doing is picking 3 pillars, I call them. So 3 things that you enjoy doing and work, and then focus on those 3 things. So for example, for me, my 3 pillars are podcasting. That's with my show, Natural Born Coaches, but also going on shows like this. So both sides of the mic. So there's podcasting, Another one for me is Facebook, but especially my Facebook group, the Coaching Jungle. That's a big part of it. And then email marketing, and specifically daily emails, which I've been doing now for 3.5 years daily. Haven't missed a day, and I won't miss a day. So if I'm doing podcasting, Facebook group, and daily emails, I'm good. Now I still get clients from elsewhere, just that's where a lot of them come in from. Now your 3 could be different. If you hate writing, emails probably aren't the best way to do it. Maybe it's Facebook Lives consistently, or, Instagram or something else. But those are my 3, and I always recommend people pick their 3 and focus on those.
So how do you start with an email list if you don't have any?
Well, you have to start somewhere. So, you could do, first things first, you want to offer something that's tempting for people in exchange for their email address, an opt-in or a lead magnet, as they're called. So it's not going to work if you're here in 2019 and you're putting a little box on your website to say, sign up for my newsletter. That's not terribly appealing for people. Instead, it's got to be, get my free whatever checklist, guide, report, whatever, challenge, or so on. So, that's one way to do it is get compelling lead magnets, put them out there to help people in exchange for email addresses. But even things like doing summits, going on podcasts, and so on, you could build that list. And I always tell people you don't need a 100,000 person list to do well with it, especially with daily emails. A smaller list will punch above its weight if you're doing daily emails.
So they talk about, I'm just going to ask you all these questions, so sorry, but they talk about people don't look at their emails anymore. There are people who show their phones and say, look, I have 10,000 emails that I haven't even looked at. So right now the big hype is, okay, let's just text people stuff. What's your thought on that?
On texting?
Texting, yeah.
Me personally, I'm not a fan of texting. I know people would argue and say, hey, it works. I find it very intrusive when I get a text out of the blue or from someone, not a friend, a marketer. So me personally, I'm much more of an email guy, and people will say, well, email's dead, which is baloney. You have to do it the right way, but email is not dead. And I know from experience that people will read them. If they're used to seeing you in their inbox every day, they look forward to it. Give you a perfect example. I had an issue a few years back. Aweber's my email platform. Shouldn't say I had an issue. Aweber had a tech issue one day, and emails were delayed by a few hours. So my emails are set to go out 7:30 a.m. Eastern time every morning. They didn't go out for a few hours. I was getting emails from subscribers saying, Mark, did you kick me off your list? I didn't get your email today. Or is this a test? What are you doing? And I said, no, Aweber has a tech issue. So you don't always know that they're reading it because they don't always hit reply or whatever. But if you're in their inbox every day with entertaining, interesting stuff that's helping them, they will be reading it. And when something happens, like I just mentioned, you'll hear about it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. So what would you tell people who are learning about, who are beginning to try to get into this realm, and it's overwhelming starting a business. Entrepreneurs, coaches, everything is so overwhelming because you have to have this app and this thing and that thing and set up that and funnels, like you mentioned. How do you ease their anxiety?
Well, if you're a perfectionist, you got to beat the perfectionism out of you because you'll get run over. So that's I think one of my superpowers is I'm not a perfectionist. I'll get something out there, then I can work on improving it. Some people are stuck in constant research mode. I'm sure you see this with niching, in that world and stuff like that. It's great to research, but it shouldn't take you 5 years to choose a niche. Now you can always change things. It's not like you're choosing a life partner. Your business will evolve. It'll change course. And as time goes on, that's natural. But I see way too many coaches and online entrepreneurs who are spending their day working on their logo or a banner for their website or something that's really not going to move the needle a whole lot, instead of putting their message out there and talking with people who they could be helping with it. So I equate it to a battlefield with war, that the rewards are out in the battlefield, not hiding in the foxhole, the trenches. So you want to get out in the battlefield, you're going to get shot and hit, not literally shot, hopefully, but you're going to get beat around. But that's where the results are, and the good stuff, the rewards are out in the battlefield, not in the trenches.
Thank you so much. Any last words?
No, I mean, one thing I always like to remind coaches and entrepreneurs, there's an acronym that Robin Sharma had in one of his books, and it's KMF. And KMF stands for keep moving forward. So if you're especially a new entrepreneur, get that tattooed on your body somewhere, keep moving forward, but you're going to get knocked down. You got to get back up and just keep going. So very important, KMF.
Natural Born Coaches. And how did you come up with that name, and why Natural Born Coaches?
Yeah, it's a funny story. So in 2014, when I was trying to choose a name, I wanted something that had my keyword in it. So I knew it had to have either coaches, coach, coaching, something like that. And here's a tip for someone if they're having trouble naming a business, could be a book, could be a program, whatever. What I did was I took the Billboard Top 100 list, so for like music and then movies and stuff, from 2014 all the way back to 1990. And I looked through every single title. So for songs and band names, I was inserting my keywords in there, playing around with it just to see. Because at this point, I'd tried so many names and nothing, it was either taken or it wasn't feeling right. So I was inserting coach, coaches, coaching in there. At one point, I actually had the domain New Coaches on the Block. You know, of course, a play on New Kids on the Block. Thank God I didn't use that. But so nothing worked for music when I went through 25 years of top 100 lists. Then I went to movies, and I was doing the exact same thing. And I got down to, what was it, 1994. Of course, Oliver Stone's movie Natural Born Killers came out then with Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis. And I inserted my keyword in there, Natural Born Coaches. Oh, okay. And then came the most nerve-wracking 10 seconds for an entrepreneur is when you go to GoDaddy to see if the domain's available, and you punch it in and wait for it to load. And I'm like, oh, come on, be available. It was. And I said, great, I'll grab it. So there's a little tip. I'm not saying you have to do that, but if you're stuck on a name, you could try that and see if it works.
Awesome. So it's a very nice story, because, you know, everybody has a different name, and I always want to know how they named their business. So that's a
yeah. One of my favorite stories about that is John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire. That's, you know, super successful podcast and brand and stuff. With John, he was trying to find something that had the word entrepreneur in it. And the story that I had heard was he was folding laundry or something, and he had the TV on in the background, and it was ESPN. And I don't know, I think it was LeBron James or something. The announcer said, you know, LeBron's on fire. And he was thinking, he's like, Entrepreneur on Fire. So then he did that thing I mentioned for GoDaddy, where he went over and punched it in and said, oh God, please be available. And Entrepreneur on Fire was available. So there's a perfect example of people could be sitting there scratching their heads for 5 hours at their desk, not come up with something. Then they're folding the laundry with ESPN on in the background, and bang, it hits them. So take pressure off yourself, have fun.
Yeah. So, you know, we have shared so many tips today. Thank you so much. But what was the hardest thing for you to start your business? And now that you're successful, when you look back, what was the advice? What would be the advice that you give yourself?
The hardest thing for me, I think, was coming off a business closure just a few years earlier. There's that little voice in my head that would be saying, who are you to be a business coach or to help anyone? You just went through this messy closure, you know, a couple offices closed, 100 agents and employees were working with me. It was just a mess. And what I flipped the script though and turned it around to think, well, you know what, that actually makes me a better coach. You know, I have the battle scars. I know what it's like to be awake at night and worrying about stuff. And I think it made me probably more empathetic to entrepreneurs because I went through that. And it's also not saying I'd want to go through it again, but that experience and stuff does make for an interesting story, kind of like a movie. If the hero of a movie never had any challenges and just went through the movie, everything was hunky-dory, be a pretty boring movie. So there are people who are watching this who might be thinking, well, can I become a coach or whatever? Because I went through whatever, maybe they've been divorced or bankrupt or, you know, anything. I would say it actually makes your story more interesting. So I've had people on my podcast who have been in prison, jail for years. I've had people on who have been in horrific accidents and just crazy stories, crazier than mine. And that actually makes their story more interesting. So anyone watching this who's has that little voice saying you can't do this, you can. And those experiences actually can make you a better coach or entrepreneur.
It's your past that shapes the future, right? And it's how you come out of it on the other side. Because if you come out and think that you're not a winner and you're a loser because you've lost everything, then you are going to be a loser. But if you change that mindset and say, you know what, I've gone through this, I've changed the trajectory of my life, I can change a lot of things now, you can make and think and do anything. So, so much for that advice. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And for those of you watching, Marc is an awesome fellow. I've been watching him for a long time. And it took me a lot of guts to say to him, hey, come on my show. Because he has his own podcast. And like you heard, he has a lot of other interesting people that comes on his show. And it's difficult sometimes to make time or to just approach people who you think are famous. But approach them anyway. That's what I learned in this past week. I've had amazing people on my show, which makes me feel like I'm making a dent in somebody's life, because sharing their stories and sharing the fact that they have come to their niche after that journey of finding themselves and coming across the hurdles. And, the hurdles are always going to be there. There's never one that's not going to, there's one that's going to either stop you or just going to have you push forward until you make that way for yourself. So go ahead and, find these people as coaches or just listen to them. They have a podcast which is available, and they are, inspiring, inspirational and very inspiring. How do people find you, Marc?
Well, the best spot is naturalborncoaches.com, and the Facebook group, which I mentioned, the Coaching Jungle, you can get there at thecoachingjungle.com.
Thank you so much. For those of you watching, if you like this show, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, we will bring another guest with another story. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group.